What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another modern video, and today we're going to be taking a look at Rakdos Scam for the modern format. It's been a while since we've actually taken a look at this deck. I had a guide go up probably around like January just about the deck and some of the minor like intricacies and just ways to kind of get yourself started like playing the deck to obviously get into playing it, doing a little bit more research on your own kind of as you play the deck and progress as like a player and stuff like that. So today we're going to be taking a look at what I believe is like a more updated version of like the Rakdos Scam deck, going over it and doing our typical deck tech sort of thing. So before we get into it, of course, if you are not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos like this, see Pioneer content and some other like essay type stuff, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and ring notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. And if you go to the link, or if you go to the description of this video, you'll find two links. One goes to the Discord server, and one goes to my Twitch channel. Go ahead and throw me a follow on Twitch, and of course, join the Discord server as well. All right, now, so Rakdos Scam, for those that have not been initiated by it, lucky you because this deck sucks to play against. For what it's worth, I think Rakdos Scam is does something that is like very powerful and is very hard. I mean, like when their hands are bad, they're very bad. But when they have kind of like the draw that they're kind of hoping to have against like most decks, it's really hard to beat. So, and what I mean by that is, and that'll be the first thing I lead off with. There's these cards, the pitch elementals. You have grief, fury, you have endurance, you have solitude, and you have subtlety. All of these are creatures that obviously have a mana cost. They do a thing when they enter the battlefield, and they evoke exiling a card of the same color as that elemental. So in Grief's case, to evoke it, you exile a black card from your hand. So when it enters the battlefield, it will be sacrificed once you resolve the evoke trigger. Uh, when playing with these cards, if you evoke it, two triggers will go on the stack. It's enter the battlefield trigger in the case of Grief, making your opponent reveal their hand and you choosing a non-lane card from it, and an evoke trigger goes on the stack. When this card was spoiled, we had people using like Grief plus Ephemerate, Fury plus Ephemerate, and Ephemerate exiling the creature and putting it back into play. It actually essentially like negates the evoke trigger since it is considered a new object. Your Grief evoke trigger will resolve and you will still have a Grief in play. This deck is not playing white. It is playing a more consistent mana base of being red and black, and essentially playing cards like Feign Death, Malakir Rebirth, and Undying Malice to essentially give a creature, like when this creature dies, returns to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Essentially getting to double up on the trigger from said pitch elemental. So while you're not playing white and you don't really get to play Solitude, you do get a more consistent mana base and just being able to still do the same thing, but playing with probably the two of the best, if not two of like the top three elementals, and it's really kind of tough because four of them are great and one kind of sucks. But in this case, you have a lot of turn ones with this deck, or at least it feels like when you're playing against it, where they go Grief, Pitch, Thoughtseize, or like Fatal Put, whatever, any of these black cards, and then they follow it up with like a Feign Death, and they just get to take the best card out of your hand, bring the Grief back. It's a 4/3, so I mean, like that's a quick clock. Going from 3 power to 4 power does up the turn, like reduces the number of turns that you have to actually have an answer for the Grief, and gets to take your next best card out of your hand. If you're just like sitting on like no interaction, essentially, like your best bet of like dealing with this is like Solitude to like get rid of it, because like that would be one of the better ways to interact with it at instant speed without having it taken a turn yet. So really, when this deck gets to be on the play and it griefs you and then has a way to just double up on that, it's very hard to win because they essentially take any interaction you have for it. And if you just had no interaction to begin with, and like so you're like a combo deck or something, it just takes two of your pieces. And not only do you need to find an answer for the grief, you also need to reassemble what you're doing. So like Rakdos Scam essentially can just like scam the game in that way where you don't get to play a game of Magic. Like there is definitely an amount of times where like they just take, your things to answer it. They take your combo if you don't have an answer for it, and you either draw an answer for it, and you're still facing down, like must answer threat in Ragavan. You're still looking at Doughty Voidwalkers who get in for unblockable damage and then cast like one of the best, like your best spell that gets exiled with it. Also having some synergy with like cards like Feign Death and Malakir Rebirth and Undying Malice and so on, because then they can bring back the Doughty Voidwalker. You can cast something, and of course the Voidwalker comes back with a +1/+1 counter. You have Croxes as a way to like sink mana into like late game, along with like Pyromancer, another like late game sink just to make some tokens. On top of that, also just kind of like smoothing out your draw, giving more tokens if you discard, non-land cards, but discarding lands to, hopefully draw some spells. And then Fury to like clean up those small creatures. The actual spells that you're playing, I mean, really, like, even though this deck isn't just jamming like 4 Feign Death, 4 Rebirth, and 4 Undying Malice, obviously these cards are pretty bad when you don't have any creatures to bring back, and they're pretty bad draws late game. So, I mean, you have to kind of balance out, like, okay, I need to play some amount of these so they end up in my hand, but then also not play too many to where, you just don't have 2 or 3 in your hand and then like no grief or fury to actually get back with it. And of course, like having more black than red. I mean, you kind of want even distribution because you're playing 4 grief, 4 fury, but you definitely want to be griefing your opponent, twice on your first turn to ensure that like you're going to get there because playing a fury, getting it back, like hitting your opponent for 8, obviously makes it a 3-turn clock versus a 5-turn clock with a grief with a +1/+1 counter on it. The grief just takes all of your opponent's like interaction for it and brings it up to like 3 toughness. So even Unholy Heats, which is probably one of the more popular um, spells, the like removal spells playing in the format, isn't good enough unless you have Delirium. So then your opponent really has to lean on Lightning Bolt to deal with griefs and stuff. But aside from these cards that bring back your evoke creatures, you even have some utility with some of your other creatures. You have Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt as a little bit of interaction for Ragavans because you absolutely need that. On top of like the 4 Fury, you have Terminate for some of the bigger threats like Murktide Regents and whatever anything else with like more than 3 toughness. And you have Thoughtseize as a way to like sort of, I mean, interact with your opponent and just make sure like the coast is clear, maybe on like evoking some of your like grief or fury, or before you like sink mana into like getting back a Croxa, or playing like a seasoned pyromancer, or even like a fable. Ooh, no, Card Kingdom, why would you do this? Technical difficulties here. All right, now that we're back, I didn't want to take that close of a look at Thoughtseize. uh Getting to play like Thoughtseize on turn 1's good, just clears the way for any of your other spells, or just like against like combo, it just has like the way of just getting to interact on super early. Fable the Mirror Breaker, having some synergy with your Griefs and Furies, just getting to make more of them. Your Seasoned Pyromancer is getting to continue to like discard and draw cards, maybe make some tokens. Dothies to essentially cast some of the other cards without getting rid of your Dothy is pretty powerful. And of course, just having the 2/2 just to give you, treasures when it attacks helps you build up a mana advantage. Super nice. The mana base, pretty straightforward. That's kind of the draw for playing the deck like this, is the fact that your mana base is super simple. You have 4 Cliffs, 4 Blood Crypt, you have 4 Bloodstained Miner, 4 Polluted Delta, with 3 Swamps and a mountain. Black is obviously like your most important color in this deck. I mean, you're definitely playing more black spells than red spells. So like just having polluted deltas as like your fetch to get the basic that you care about, super good. Obviously triggers like Revolt for Fatal Push, gets you just a little bit more. You're definitely not worried about getting like Mountain or anything like that in this deck. So again, super straightforward mana base, really nice and simple. You go to the sideboard, you have like Engineered Explosives, which mainly deals with like Rhinos because you just play for 0 mana. and put it on the board. Also, the fact that you do make treasure tokens, you can make them with some consistency that you can actually like take this up even higher and kill some like one and three and four mana, obviously, or just have enough mana to be able to play an engineering explosives on one or two, and then also activate it in the same turn as well, so it just doesn't have to sit around. Uh, you have fatal pushes, terminates, just more removal in the sideboard. You have Turok as like a way to kind of get around like solitudes and things like that. Also, if you eventually get to like kick it, just getting two cards out of your hand or out of your opponent's hand can be big game, and growing the Turok as well. Unlicensed Hearse to mess with other people's graveyards. Also, just eventually making like a giant beater when your opponent is unable to put more cards in their graveyard, and closing out the game that way. Blood Moon, even in 2023, when people know that it's a thing, could still be an auto win in a lot of matchups. Also gets rid of Urzasakas, completely takes it off the battlefield, and Shieldred the Apocalypse because this card is can just win games on its own if it just gets to stick on the battlefield, even for like a few turns. And when this card like starts turning sideways, like you are in for a world of hurt. And that is Rakdos Scam for Modern. Overall, again, like I said, when it has like abysmal draws, its draws are abysmal. I do not like playing against this deck because a lot of the decks that I want to play, like require you to play your first and second turn of the game to really like interact with people. And Scam just basically has like those draws like some amount of the time, if not most of the time, where they just get to take your two best cards out and they have a 4/3 in play before you take your first turn, which makes it very, very hard. Definitely don't recommend being on the draw for 2 out of 3 games against Rakdos Scam, because if you are like a Murktide deck or if you're just like a Spell Pierce deck, you obviously want to be going first. Some of like the blue-white control, whatever, they're kind of okay because like, they play Solitudes. They also have like force negations and stuff like that. So like in theory, you could stop a grief from coming back, but then again, like they also get 3 cards out of it. There's just like no good way of this because like even if you do have the answer for their turn one play, chances are like all those 0 mana like interactions are going to cost you like the card that you need to play plus another card, and then they're also going to get whatever's left after that. You're basically starting on like a 5 card hand if you kept 7, which is like actually just insane. So, all in all, be prepared if you do decide to pick up this deck and play it. One, check out the guide that I have on my channel just to, acclimate yourself with the deck and, just get used to playing it. um, and kind of like get past like the super beginner like learning phase, and like you can just kind of like play at a basic level till you start learning and running into some more interactions and things like that. On top of that, also just be okay with like having some very mediocre hands and just sometimes losing the game because I mean it happens with all decks, but Scam definitely can have some draws that just look very, very bad. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Remember, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that and ring notification bell so you get more notifications on whenever I post a video. I post a lot of modern content and Pioneer along with some other short form like essay type videos, just some fun ones that honestly like do amazing. Like y'all kill it on those videos. And of course, follow the links in the description of this video to Twitch channel. Go ahead and throw me a follow over on Twitch and then join the Discord server as well. That's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed and I hope to see you all in the next one.